So you've used Plan Designer and you have a Power Apps Canvas app, but how do you style it? How do you customize it? Well, in this episode, Rich is going to show us how you can do that. Stay tuned. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Low Code Revolution Show. I'm Eliza. I'm a senior cloud advocate here at Microsoft. And today we have Rich, who is one of our Microsoft MVPs based in New Zealand, that is going to share tips on how you can style and customize your Parents Canvas app after it's been built with Plan Designer. I'm now going to hand it over to Rich, who's going to introduce himself. Welcome to the show, Rich.
Thanks, Eliza. Happy to be here. So today we're going to talk about when you make your initial Canvas app using Plan Designer, you'll go through the usual kind of set through. You can see how the app's been built. You've got all the data sources created, and then you can click Create, and that will build you an amazing Canvas app that will work straight out the box. It'll be ready to go. It will be responsive. It'll look a bit like this. So when you play it in the browser, then it will respond to kind of the look and feel that you want, and so it will work for you. But it's, as you can see from here, it's kind of got, it's a template, right? So it's ready to go, but you need to customize it. So what do you do next once you've built your Canvas app? So in today's session, what I'm hoping to show is some simple customizations that will allow you to extend your Power App to make it fit more for your business, more for your enterprise, and your look and feel and style. So we're going to step through some examples. I'll show them now, and then we'll walk through how to actually build them. So you've got the basic customization where you can just add in some logos instead of the plain images, or then we can extend it up to extend with different images that could be responsive and extend based on what you want. And then you could go into more animated GIFs kind of stuff where you can make things look kind of cool and be more engaging potentially. You got to be careful with those because they can be a bit busy, but you got to pick the right ones you want. Shout outs to Flat Icon there because I need to make sure I reference that, but I'm not using them for sale. But it's just basically showing how you can use, if you've got an account to get animated GIFs, you can make things look pretty cool. And then we're going to go and show a more advanced screen of how you can make an app look completely not like a Power App. That will respond. If we pick the window size, we'll get circles instead of squares as well. So we can do a little bit of customization with our buttons depending on what we're going to look at. And then if I go back to regular view, and then I don't think I'm going to have time to show this last one, but you can obviously with the Power App extend it to make it look pretty awesome and not like a Power App at all. So you can build your own dashboard and make it look like a great kind of application that will engage all users across your business. So let's roll back and start with the initial view. So we've got, first up, we'll land our welcome screen. I have created a little one over here, which is similar, but this will be exactly what you get when you first load up your Canvas app after using Plan Designer. And it's probably going to be blue, that shade of blue. So what do you do first of all? So I will show up. I've added some images in here already, so we'll add those through in a second. But the first thing to do potentially here will be, as a user, I might think, right, I want to add my company's logo into here. So to do that, I'm going to select the container that holds the header. If you ever are interested to look at what's set up, you've got header, screen container is the whole screen. We've got header container, and then inside header one. I'm not going to rename the containers in this show, but I would definitely recommend making sure you've got usable names that you can understand and work with as you're building out your app so you know where you are when you're using the controls. But in header one, what we're going to do is, first of all, jump over to the property pane on the right-hand side. We can see it says welcome screen. I could change that to my demo app. I want to show the title and I want to add a logo. So I've got a few different logos I can add. Now I've got a blue background, so I'm going to pick the reverse icon there. It's going to pick up my user profile picture here anyway, but I'm not quite happy with the color of blue, so I want to add my own blue to match my company's color, right? So to do that, I do have the option to create regular out-of-the-box themes, but I am going to go with a different theme. So to get that, I'm going to go into settings, and I'm going to turn on my themes, modern controls and themes. I'm going to turn that on, so make sure you do that. And once that's enabled, then we can add in theme from the left-hand side. And then I can have, you'll see a different look and feel. It's got the Power Apps look and feel here. It's similar, but I want to add my own theme. So to do that, I just push add a theme. Then I can give it my theme. And then I'm going to stick with the regular font, that sort of stuff, but I'm going to change my colors from that to, should be a nice shade. And then a really cool feature that exists now in Power Apps is to lock the primary color. If you don't do that, you might find as you add buttons, they will pick a different shade based on a more responsive and sort of look and feel to allow the app to work on different lighting conditions and be more available to all users. But for us, we're going to stick with the blue, so we're going to turn that on. And you can see it's not necessarily going to work in high contrast, but that's okay. We're going to accept that risk. If I scroll down, I can see the preview, how that would look for different fields, and I'm totally happy with that. So then we're going to do that. We're not going to see that again. We're just going to say enable, and now I've got my blue working. Right, so I've already made my app look a little bit better. I've got my blue theme going on, and it's still these white blocks. So the next thing to do would be to change these images here. So to do that, I'm going to select into the item, and then I can say, well, there's no image selected at the moment. I can upload images, or I can use stock images. We'll use stock images for this today, and we'll just select some random ones from here just to save us time for demoing. And these will come up square when they first go in, and that's possibly going to be okay. We'll show how to change those in just a second on the next demo, but let's just walk through. Let's put some buttons in there. But you can see how quickly and easily you can start customizing your app to look more to what you're looking for. So these could have images based on kind of the look that you're actually looking for. Let's pick something else. Let's do people there. Cool. And so then within 5 minutes, I've got an app that looks a little different. It's got more engaging. These will take me through to the actual screens that I've got, which is fine. And it's picking up the blue theme all the way through the app. There is demo data in there already from what we've built. But I can see I've got my images, but they're kind of small, and we've got these big blocks. This will respond nicely on a phone anyway, out of the box. So it's going to swish down, but we've still kind of got a square image in there that I may not want to keep. So to get rid of that, or to move on to the next stage, what we'll do is we'll look at changing how these images work inside of our app. I'll minimize that for a sec. So to do that, what we're going to do is click into our image, and then in the image property pane on the right, we don't need to change. We are going to change some width and height in just a second. But first of all, we're going to find border radius. So this item here, border radius will allow us to make curves on all our images. So if I make that 20 on all those, we can see we've already got like something going on. And this might just be enough with your app just to make those images work. The main thing with these images is they're small to fit inside that container, and they will work, but we might want to make them bigger and smaller based on what we're looking for as well. So because at the moment they look cool, but they're kind of small, which is fine. But let's change that up so we can make them slightly larger. Now to do that, what I'm going to want to do is work on my width. And so I'm going to try and look at my image, and I could, if I manually resized it, then it would stay that size no matter how big the actual app screen was. And I want the image to respond to the size of the screen it's being played in, right? So to do that, we're going to need to add some formulas. So adding formulas isn't a scary thing in Power Apps, but it is something you need to think about. We need to think width and height. And the main other thing we need to think about is this image sits inside a container. Now on the container, if I click it, it will be highlighted, so I can see that's image container 1. So I can sort of save the name of that. So I've got that for use in a minute. And so this image has already been created by Plan Design to respond to the screen that's on. So I don't need to change anything there. I can just leave it this, and I can make this image work inside of the space to be more kind of responding and growing and shaping itself based on the size of the container it lives in. So to do that, first of all, we're going to go into our width. So on the property pane with the image select, I can select width. And I've got a set value of 100. If I click width there, I can see it actually shows up in my pane here. And I'm going to do, I copied it earlier, so that's the image container. We can see that's there. I'm going to say image.container width. And that will make it wide. But I'm then going to put like a little formula behind that to say divide by 2. So that's going to be half the size of the container width. And And you can see here now I've got my width container kind of in a formula. So to change and edit that, I do need to select width again. I can go back in there and make changes up here. Okay, cool. And then I can make adjustments here with the image position as well. I could say, well, fit the image into that, but I'm going to say fill because I want that image to respond based on the size of the container. And so I'm going to cheat now because I'm just going to copy that formula and I'm going to paste it all into all of these particular images as well. You could just say, make each one, spend more time and say, well, that's the name, that's image container 1_1. So make this image respond to that one. But the good thing about the way the Power Apps are built is they're all going to respond to this container over there here in the top left. And so everything's going to respond to that. We will, because I'll show you that. If I did this one here, let's just use that as an example. This is image container 1_3. And you can see it's much wider than the other two containers in this play. So let's just show you what we can do here. So I did that image container 1_3. You can see it's got big, right? And divide by 2, it's still big. And it looks okay in this view, but as I make my screen a little smaller, that's big, mini, yeah, that's going to be okay there. But if I go back and find a slightly larger screen, you can see it's going to fit and be much wider than the others. And I might not want that, right? I might want all my images to look just the same and have this container sort of fitting in this space here. So to do that, again, a little cheat that I use, you're welcome to copy it as well. So this is the image here. And I know this name is called image 1. And so for anywhere where I'm going to have maybe a container sitting outside of the main sort of in the grid where they're all the same size and one at the bottom that sits on its own that's wider, that image width I can change to say, rather than be the container width, let's just change that to the width, the same width of the item up here. And so when I play that one now, that's going to stick the right size. So we still got a much larger white box at the bottom, but that's probably going to be okay for this app. But it makes our images all the same size, so no one image is going to detract from anybody else around on the screen. So what we'll do is we'll just quickly jump in and make those image widths the same as well. We'll just copy that. We'll just do the container one for these ones. Just remember to put your divide by 2 in. And that's container 3, or 1_2. Again, this is why we rename our controls so we can easily understand which containers we're working with rather than trying to have to figure out on the fly which is image 1_2 or what's image container 1_2 width. So, but for today, we're all good. Ooh, divide by 2. Cool. Okay, so then we've got now an image that's going to sit in there. As we change it around, it's going to be wider for like this big screen, but it's still sort of working and responding to the size around it. So camera size, there we go. So that's fitting, looking all right. It's kind of fitting the way we want it to look. Okay, so that's then a little bit longer. You can extend and make those images look a little bit nicer on your screen and make things kind of a more engaging Power App that looks a bit less like an out-of-the-box Power App, but it's starting to get there, right? So that's what we're going to, now we're going to extend this and we're going to try and make it look more like, if I go back to this one here, over to here. So we've got a basic 3. So now we're going to change and we're going to add images, and adding animated GIFs into our app is really simple as well. So you'd go to a GIF provider or make your own, get a license to use it if you're going to use it in production. And then the key thing there, I can just switch these images out using the image control. I've already loaded up my images here, so I can start popping them in. And so here I've got the image set to fill, and what I want to do is have it to be fit. And so that's going to then respond and be the right size for me. So then if I go back into that one, make another change, let's pick that, again, to fit. But you can see you can have loads of fun just adjusting your Power App to fit and to be kind of how you want it to look in the world for whatever environment you're going to deploy this app into. So you can match it to what you want to have. So we've still got connection. We want to pick, tap it, click. There we go. Let's do that one and then fit that in. And so now I've got an app that's responding nicely with my images all set. And I can make these larger as well if I want to. Again, I can respond. So they're responding to the width, but I've got fit in place. So they're going to respond. They're going to be that sort of size based on however size the image container is around. And we set that to height of, so the width is set to the height of the container. So they're going to be, it's going to get wider, but they're not necessarily getting any taller because you haven't made the height of the image container adjust to the height of the container. So I could change that if I wanted to as well. Let's just see if we wanted to do that. To drop in a height, 1 second. And I can just say for this, so I can say minimum height rather than I can say like, let's go flexible height. And then let's say minimum height is 100. So again, really simple control inside of the Power Apps control. When I'm using fit for the image, I can just slide this toggle across to be flexible height. And you'll see that the animated GIFs we've got are now responding and looking a bit larger, but also not overly large so they're not just detracting from the actual app. But again, down here, we've got this, they're all kind of fitting just the way I want them to look. So again, by just spending another 5 minutes on my app, I can again extend it and make it look even better than it was when it first came out of the box. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do next is we're going to try and make our app look more like this one, which requires a little bit more work, but it's something that everyone I think should be able to know how to do, and find yourself a background that you can work with. But let's go into that app. And so to step through how we make this change, you'll notice we've got this main container that sits around the back. If I go up here, you can see I'm on the welcome screen. Screen container is my background container, and everything that sits inside of that container responds to the size of this main container. But I've also got some controls in this container that I can adjust and do things with, right? So there's backgrounds and things I can do. And also up in on the welcome screen itself, there's a fill and a background image property as well, which I can sit behind the main thing. And then inside of each of these containers, we can see they're white and there's a gray background as well, right? So to make this app have a full background image, what I would do initially would be to start removing the whiteness of each of these fills in all these containers and then put a larger image behind the back. And so to do that, what we'll do is we'll go to the welcome screen. We don't need to worry about the fill at the moment. We are going to select background image, and then we are going to change the image position to fill rather than fit. If you've got an image that you create and add into your background of your Power App, if you set it to fit, it's possibly going to stay narrow when your screen's much wider. So it just helps in terms of narrowing that. So we go into our background images. Again, I've loaded up a few here. I have an account with Zoomscape backgrounds, and I'm going to say fill that, but we see nothing here yet. So I need to make sure I've got that the color property of my background of my main container set as nothing to be transparent. Okay, so I do that, but then also I can't see that yet. And the reason why is because in my screen container, that also has a background color enabled. So I would select my screen container, which is the very first main container of my app. And in the property panel on the right, I'd look for this color property, click on that, and then I remove that. And so I can see now I'm starting to see there is an image behind the scenes here. And then I would be mapping through to change the backgrounds here. So let's just do that. So again, we're going to need to go through each one. We're going to need to find out where the color is on each and just set that to be transparent. And you can just sort of just start clicking around in your app to find the bits. So now we're starting to see that was the main container. That doesn't have background anymore. And that might be enough. I might have like a really cool background that's just got colors in the background of it that I just can change and move around. But I do want to change these pieces here. Also, as part of what we're going to do is we're going to remove these sections here with the text message, because we're going to have an image button or a button with the text of what we want to do. We just need to remember that we've got equipment checkout, start members, and extension requests. Okay, so clicking into that one. So now I can see there. So I wouldn't panic at this point because I'm thinking, oh, I can't see my text, but don't worry, this will all start to make sense very soon. So I'm just clicking, and when I'm clicking, I'm making sure I'm clicking the container that holds all of the items in it. So I can see I've got container 1 there. And again, down to the image, into the background. Cool. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for these containers where I've got the title, and I'm just going to delete them, take them out. So make sure again I've got the whole item selected. And it's harder to see when you've got the background set up, but that's okay. Make sure if you can't figure out if you got it or not, just select that. And then you can from this side also select delete, and that would remove it. So then now I've got an app where I've got kind of like my buttons. They still take me to the screens inside of the app because it's basically on push. But these are just images, and I'm going to replace them with buttons. Okay. So to do that, we can have that in there. We're going to take this. We're actually going to remove the image. We're just going to get right click. Sorry, not right click. I'm just going to click it and click delete on my keyboard. And I've got a plus sign there now. So I've got do that one and do the same thing. Remove, remove, remove. And then this one's got a red arrow because it was looking for a formula in there. So to get that, I can select it by there. And again, I can right click that side and click delete. So I've got my power up with my 4 containers. Sometimes it's useful to not have your image background showing at this point in time so you can sort of see how your things are responding on the screen. But we'll jump straight in and add buttons into this, and we'll just do one, and then we'll just copy and paste it into the others. So let's add that. And so we've enabled modern controls, and so the modern control button allows us to add an icon into that button. And so it's sort of sitting at the bottom of the item here. So we want to adjust that a little bit. And so I'm just going to check over on this side. That's cool. And let's change that. So we're going to say that one was equipment. Just says equipment. We'll add an icon. We'll just do plus. We'll have the icon before, but obviously the button's teeny tiny, which we're going to adjust in a second. We're going to keep it visible. We're going to keep the display mode to enabled. We are going to say we're going to change the width. We're going to change the height. We're not going to keep it as flexible height in this point in time. We are going to keep the center aligned. We're going to keep the alignment in container to be set by the container, and we're going to keep the primary theme and style. So first thing to do, we're going to change our width. So let's go into that one. So it's set to 96 at the moment. So 96 is a little small for us. So what we will do would be to say, hey, let's make the button respond to this container size. And there is another way to add the width, and you can just say parent width if you wanted to as well. And it's going to be parent width times 0.8. So this is another way to do formulas in Power Apps, but you can, rather than divide, you can multiply by less than 1, and it'll give you 80% of the width, right? So that's already there. Okay, so that's our item sitting in there. And to show you how this is sitting, it's in the image container in the button canvas already, so we're there. Okay, and we are going to change the height now. Again, this one I've adjusted so in the player, it's round when the width of the app is really wide, and then it sort of moves to a more rectangular with beveled edges when the image or the player width is a little smaller. So to do that takes a little more of a formula, but just pause the clip and take it from there. So we're going to say for this, we're going to say if the app, it's the app width, which is the size of the app in the browser or the player, is less than, so we'll pick there's different breakpoints in Power Apps, so I can show you those in just a second. But if it's less than 1683, we're going to say make the height of this button parent dot width times 0.8. So it'd be kind of large. But if we are hitting the other side of that, we're going to say make it so it's the container. And that's container 1 dot height. And then we're just going to multiply that by 0.4 and then close the brackets so we no longer get any errors. So we notice we got a little red error there because Power Apps is awesome, and we need to make sure we add a comma then. But we can see we still got like a little error there, so it's going to figure out what the message is there with our little error message. Oh, we've got if. We don't need a bracket there. Cool, there we go. So now I've got my button sort of sitting on the screen, but I need to move it up into the environment, and I do need to curl those edges a little bit more as well. So let's adjust that with our vertical alignment, and we're going to just say middle And that should sit inside our little area there, but let's have a little figure out why that is. So we're sitting inside the image container inside the container. And so what I might want to do for this one is move my, or I could adjust my image container, but this is sort of restricted to too smaller. So I'm going to move that up into that space, and I'm going to delete the image container, and now I'm in the middle. So now I'm sitting in that space. And I can see my font is sort of small. I could put a formula in here as well to make my font larger, but we'll just make the font a little bit larger on the button. So we can see that down in the style and the theme section. Font's fine, we'll do font size. Let's just make it 26 because that's almost, remember, that wants to be that big. Cool, so I've got my image there. That's my item, right? So to then move through and add all these ones in, we notice that we hit the image container. We're going to nuke those out for the 3 containers we've got it in. So we've just got containers now, and I'm going to copy that, paste it into each one. You can notice you can just copy and paste straight into your item, and see there we've got, similar to when we did the images right at the start, we've got the button that's responding. It's much wider, so we want to make that button again match button canvas 1 image. So let's just do that, change our width on that one, so this will respond rather than being parent width. You can do double slashes in Power Apps to make sure that it's easy to see any code that you may have put in before. We're going to say button canvas dot width, and then that will respond to that. So now I've got 3 buttons that will respond nicely on my screen and making things look cool. They're kind of square still, so we need to do a bit more refining. Let's adjust that. So let's work through and make these look a little bit better. So this is checkouts, I think. And then let's change that to something different. It looks almost like a checkout kind of item. Make that. Again, knowing your data source before you do a demo is useful, because then you can make sure you get the right names for each item. So let's do that. Make sure that search for, is there a person item? Awesome. So I can just search for icons that would fit and work nicely for what I'm doing. And then this is just extension requests. Again, let's pick something else. There we go. Cool. So I've got my items there. So now I'm going to want to change these to have more of a white border around my buttons. But we can see it's starting to take shape. I've got my image happening. It's all looking pretty cool. So that's, again, going to my main item here. And then I've got in my style and theme, I can look for border. So there's no border set at the moment. So I want a solid border. And I want that to be white. Well, actually, sorry, I'm going to make that. This is the size of the border, and then that's the color of the border. So let's just pick white for that for now. We can see we've changed that now. We've got a thicker one. So I might actually go for the thicker item rather than 2. 2 feels a little bit not quite right. So now I've got those. So I can, again, scoot through, change all these. All right. So again, there. All right, so now I've got thicker images looking good, and then on the phone, they're also going to be larger, but they're fine. They're going to respond nicely on it in that view. If I make it like more vertical, I can change that. It's good. Happy with how it's looking. But I want to make them when I'm on a larger screen. Don't want a big block squares, right? I want to make them round, circular items, and I want to change my border radius on all these items as I go through. So to do that, okay, what we're going to do down, we can see under style and theme, we've got border radius right down the bottom, and then we're going to pick is 180. And then click away from that, and you'll see it's already changed. So again, do that for each one. Sometimes if you think you've clicked, it could be my mouse, but if I click on it, sometimes I need to make sure I have actually clicked on the item I want to update. So make sure you're there, and then click away from where you've made the adjustment in the property pane to see that change on your screen. Cool. I can adjust border radiuses to have curls on like top left and top right and nothing at the bottom, so I can do that, but we're going with straight round for now. So then now I'm looking Like I've got round circular items when I go here. But when I go smaller, then they're going to respond to my look and feel. So that's kind of what I wanted to show today. And that's all the customizations I wanted to show you. Um, I hope to be able to create future enhancements to how we can make Power Apps look even better. And I want to do a demo that will explain this look and feel, how to make this. But I don't think we've got time to do that for this session. But hopefully in this little playthrough, we've been able to show you how to change your app from the basic custom Power App and then extend it to make it more and more visually appealing for all of the users that are going to enjoy using that app for your business purpose.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. I really liked how you shared the tip on how you can adjust the width of the button accordingly to the width of the app based on the device that they're on. I think that's going to be a really cool tip that our viewers will enjoy today. So, Rich, one question I do have with you is after you've styled and you've customized your Canvas app, can you share it with other users in your team and your organization?
Oh, yep. So to share the app, you mean, just look and feel,
Yes.
or to put it out there, so to publish. So we built this app as a solution, and so it could exist as a solution in my own dev environment, and I can publish that solution up to my production environment. But if I wanted to share this app right now, I would just click on the share icon here, and then basically I need to save it. So we haven't saved this app. So always remember to save your app before you do any work with it. And I am my own personal environment, so which means they're slightly limited in who I can share with. But let's do that. We have saved it. Let's save that. Let's go to another app we can share instead. Go to this one instead. So to share that app, it's gonna warn me that I'm in a developer environment, which is fine. But if I'm in production, I can share that. Then I can then share with named users, or ideally, I want to share with an Entra ID group of people. So all my company, but or a restricted group of key users that will use this. Power Apps no longer supports the everybody name, but I want to use Entra ID so I can manage and maintain who can access my app. But it's as simple as that. And then I can then say they're users. I want to make sure I'm just in only sharing my app as users with all the people that are going to use it. But if there are other people that need to maintain it and support it with me, then I would add them as co-owners as well. And then I just like type a name in. So let's just do like me. I could share that, and then I could say click share. That would notify. If I added a message, it would send an email, but I'm just going to say share. And then I could copy the link and send them a nice pretty email to explain, hey, we've got this new app. Please start using it. And then it's as simple as following that link. Or on my intranet, I would have a button where I could click on that button and it would take me to the app, and I'll just start enjoying using the app right from the go.
Well, thank you so much, Rich, for joining us on the show today. Really liked all the tips that you shared with our viewers. So that's it for today's episode, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.